How's it going, everybody? I'm finally going to be breaking down my top 10 movies of 2017. This was a very difficult list to make because there's about like 25 movies that I loved, and I can only put on 10 in my top 10. I will go through a couple honorable mentions. The only ones I haven't seen that maybe could make in my top 10, although it'd be hard to crack because my top 10 is pretty solid now, and to be in there, it's going to be tough to make it, are The Post and Phantom Thread. Those are the ones I haven't really seen that maybe could sneak in there because they're kind of those awards contenders. But other than that, again, like I said, these honorable mentions, though, kind of hurt me that they're not in my top 10, again, because I love pretty much all these movies. So my honorable mentions are as follows: Wonder Woman, Baby Driver, Mother, Logan Lucky, Molly's Game, Darkest Hour, Logan, The Big Sick, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, The Disaster Artist, and Wind River. Now again, Wind River was one of my favorite movies. I think it was at the top of my list at one point, but again, just over time, rewatchability, it's an intense movie, and again, just what am I going to revisit? What am I going to watch over and over again? Logan not making it. It's one of the best superhero movies I think ever made, but again, I'm going to rewatch other movies I think before that. So again, it's tough to crack this list, and I love a lot of these movies. They're so great. So many great movies. 2017, I think, exceeded 2016. We'll see what 2018 has in store, but starting off, my top 10 is Thor Ragnarok. This is a superhero movie that I will continue to rewatch. It is hilarious. I love how Marvel kind of went on full comedy with this one. Taika Waititi directs this perfectly. His humor is at the forefront. Korg is now one of my favorite characters in all of the MCU. Just a great, great movie, and that's why it's my number 10. At number 9 is Blade Runner 2049. I liked the first Blade Runner. Wouldn't say I loved it. I liked it. I appreciate it a little bit, but again, it's nothing I'm going to revisit. This is one that I will revisit. Blade Runner 2049, one of the best directed and looking movies of the year. Denis Villeneuve does such a fantastic job. He's one of my favorite directors. Ryan Gosling brings it. Harrison Ford brings it. This world that they create down the road, coming like 30 or so years after the first one, is just fantastic to see. I don't think it's quite been 30, but again, just being able to revisit this world and expand upon it is something that is hard to do, and to make it look so visually stunning and just well shot is fantastic, and that's why it is my number 9. Number 8 is War for the Planet of the Apes. I know some people didn't necessarily like this one as much because it wasn't the war that you were promised, but again, I think it's some people kind of similar to the Star Wars situation with expectations going into it. This movie, I loved it. I loved the slow burn of it. It was kind of more of a battle, but it's a war. The war is kind of around them. Andy Serkis, I think, does his best work as Caesar in this one. It's a great closing to this trilogy, and just a great cap-off, because, again, to end 3 movies that are all great is tough to do, and this is one of the best trilogies now of all time. And speaking of Star Wars, at number 7, we have Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I love this movie. It is so much fun. It is a little more intense. It kind of subverts your expectations. It goes left when you think it's going to go right, and I appreciated that thing. After watching it a second time, I think it works even better on a second viewing. Not saying you have to watch it a second time, but just for me, I even enjoyed it more the second time I saw it. Star Wars: Last Jedi is one of my favorite Star Wars movies ever, and that is why it's my number 7. I'm not the biggest horror fan, but coming in at number 6 is It. I love this movie. It's kind of a coming-of-age movie that has kind of this horror skin around it. Pennywise is terrifying when he needs to be, but it's really these kids coming together, going through their high school problems, and just seeing them bond together and overcome their fears. And again, just the way this movie progresses, I loved it. I love seeing the kids interact. It reminds me of Stranger Things, but again, you could say Stranger Things borrowed from It, because again, this movie, I'm not the biggest horror guy, but it's these type of horror films that work for me because they don't have all these jump scares 24/7. They're more of these just great stories, similar to the Conjuring universe and everything. With that, you see these great stories being told, and then they have the horror elements. That's what I felt like what It is. It is a horror movie, but at the same time, it's this coming-of-age drama that I really appreciated. Coming in at the number 5 spot is The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro, his latest movie, and this thing is so beautiful to look at. It's one of the best shot movies of the year. The color they use in this thing is beautiful. Sally Hawkins is like mesmerizing in this role. The story between her and this creature is so beautiful, and it could come across as very weird, but it doesn't. One of my favorites, again, obviously one of my favorites of the year, and potentially my pick, I think, for Best Picture, but there's a couple others in there that are coming on my list that maybe could steal it away from it. Who knows? At number 4, was a movie I liked the first time, and I had to come to terms with myself in putting it here, and that's I, Tonya. For some reason, I love this movie. It has this dark humor to it that really works in it. I love the way the story is told in this kind of documentary type of style. Margot Robbie, I think, gives a career best. Allison Janney is a shoo-in lock for Best Supporting Actress. And again, just this different side of the story that you've all heard of and you've all seen. I really like the way it explores that, and again, it's just a great, great movie. If you haven't seen I, Tonya, check it out, because I think it's one of those underrated movies that I know a lot of people like it, but I don't know. It's number 4. I love this movie. Coming in at number 3 for the movies I saw last minute at the Vancouver International Film Festival, and that's Lady Bird. This movie is something that everyone can relate to in some way. Everyone's been through school. Everyone's had their own similar type of problems. I like that this movie kind of subverts the genre of this coming-of-age story, because it doesn't necessarily focus on a romance. It's kind of about the mother-daughter relationship, and Saoirse Ronan, again, is fantastic in this movie, coming off the heels of other movies like Brooklyn from a few years back. Might be her best performance, this one. Who knows? It is just such a great thing. Laurie Metcalf, who plays her mother, is fantastic in the film as well. Just as a whole, this movie works on so many different levels. You don't necessarily need to have gone to like a Catholic school to relate to this movie, because everyone has similar crossover type experiences that everyone experiences in school, and that's why Lady Bird, especially coming off for Greta Gerwig, her first ever directed movie, this one, it works on so many levels, and something that, again, everyone can relate to. My number 2 movie of the year is Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. This movie is so intense, and the way the movie kind of just builds in intensity as it goes forward in the film is just beautiful, and is one of the best shots, similar to Blade Runner 2049 movies of the year, because the sweeping landscape, Christopher Nolan does a lot of stuff in camera, and it really pays off. Seeing this also in IMAX 70mm was fantastic and breathtaking. The sound design, Hans Zimmer's score, kind of, again, there's not too much dialogue, so the score has to carry a lot of that emotion with it. The performances are also great when they're there. Just an intense movie that by the end of it, it gets uplifting at times. It can get very scary, edge your seat type stuff, and just an all-around great movie. And my number 1 movie of 2017 is none other than the movie right in the middle there, Get Out. I love Get Out. This is the type of movie that really appeals to me, these psychological thrillers. I'm not calling this a horror movie, because I don't think it is at all. It's one of these psychological thriller movies, similar to like a Black Mirror type episode. Speaking of Black Mirror, Daniel Kaluuya was in Black Mirror, and I just wound up really enjoying this one. A first watch, it's great. A second watch gives you a different experience for knowing where things go. Again, it's one of the most intense movies of the year. Also, for another first-time director, Jordan Peele, directing this movie, a comedy guy coming in doing this horror social commentary type movie is just fantastic, and a movie that I can watch over and over and over again. So great. And that concludes my top 10 movies of 2017. There were so many great movies this year. Like I said, there's like 25 that I really liked to loved in this year. I think it's one of the best years for movies, quality-wise. The blockbusters maybe didn't pay off the way we all thought they would, but it's all these smaller indie movies that really enhanced the year and wound up making the bulk of my top 10 of the year. So let me know your top 10 list. Let me know what you agree and disagree with, because I guarantee there's a lot of disagreement, because I didn't include something like Logan or Wonder Woman in my top 10. That will be in a lot of your guys' top 10s, but that's just the way it is. And again, I love those movies. They're so much fun. It's just hard to create this top 10, and I can't wait to see what happens next year with a lot of good movies. My most anticipated will be coming very soon. Hopefully, we'll get that done within the next week or so. So definitely be on the lookout for my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2018. Follow me on the app Stardust. Follow me, simply have my name, Brad Thomas, available on iOS and Android. You get to see tons of reactions, just of movies, TV shows. As soon as I do them, you will have heard from me on the app. So that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to y'all later.